For sure.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us on another Tuesday with the Multifamily Freedom Chasers. Um, I am solo hosting it tonight, but don't worry, I will be able to answer any questions you guys have. Please message in the chat or raise your hand, makes it a lot easier for me to keep track. And I'm going to pass the mic to JJ real quick just to kind of explain what he's doing, what he's up to, and give him a little bit of a spotlight. And yeah, JJ, take the mic.
All right, cool. Thanks for letting me speak on this call again. Yeah, I'm raising money for charity. I'm trying to raise $10,000, and the reason is because my teacher thinks our class can only raise $400. So behind her back, I'm raising $10,000. Because every year our school raises money for charity. Each class sees who can raise the most money in a month. Our goal was supposed to be 2,500. I set it at 2,500, and she said that's unrealistic. Let's do 400. So what I did was I went behind her back, and we've been having 2 calls a week with my class and Discord calls, and we've been, planning out how we're gonna raise the money. The money's going to build houses for less fortunate people, or for people in less fortunate countries, for kids, like playhouses and stuff. Like they build playgrounds. It's called Palmer's Playhouse. It's a really good organization. Family at my church runs it. Here's the GoFundMe. For sure, go donate. And yeah, that's all I got.
Do you want to mention your challenge you're doing and give us more info on that?
Oh, the raising 10,000. Yeah, so
Or the pull-up
I
one,
got.
right?
Oh yeah. In like a week or something, I'm gonna be doing a live stream for this charity. Where I anyone that donates during the charity, like, or during the live stream, donates to the charity during the live stream, I will do as many pull-ups as like every dollar they donate, I will do one pull-up for. So like if someone donates $200, I'll do 200 pull-ups, and it's gonna be like a 10-hour stream. Hopefully we'll raise a few $1,000s. I'll have some other consequences on there, like, I don't know, shave my eyebrows if someone donates 1,000. I don't know, something like that. We'll see what happens, but
What I would do to be 17 and be able to leverage that, because if I did that now, I wouldn't be it's not a good idea, to be fair. That's awesome. I love it. I like how motivated you are and how kind of like passionate you are about it. I don't know what's worse,
for sure.
counting the number of pull-ups you're doing and making sure they don't mess up, or actually doing the pull-up. So when let's see what the chat says about that, because the counting already sounds exhausting to me. And I'm gonna be honest, if it was me doing it, I would like repeat numbers just to be me,
Yeah.
but because I think it'd be funny. But obviously, I don't think that's a problem for you. You look like you're more than strong enough to handle it, so that'd be pretty. It's pretty funny. But that
Yeah, for
but
sure.
it's
Yeah.
awesome. Make sure you give us more information on what date that's gonna be on.
Yeah, I gotta
Uh,
set it up. I'll probably say something on another Freedom Chasers call about the live stream, but I'll probably set that up tomorrow, like everything, up. But it'll be super fun. Everyone, can hang out with me on the live stream. It'll be fun.
can you do me one more favor? Put your YouTube channel in the chat
Oh
as well,
yeah.
just so people know other ways to get a hold of you and can kind of see what you're doing and why you're so cool at 17. And I wish I was as cool as you ever in my life. So let's just use this as an opportunity to kind of promote what you do, because I respect it a lot. So um yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for hopping on. Thanks for sharing as always.
for
If
sure,
you
for sure.
need anything, please let me know. If anyone wants to donate, the links in the chat. And awesome. Appreciate you, JJ.
Yeah, appreciate you letting me on.
Yeah, of course. I got you, man. So this is what I wanted to post real quick. For anyone that didn't come in or came in during that spiel, rewatch the replay. Look, yeah, okay, good. It's being recorded. Also, I did put two links in the chat below. You guys will be able to see that. If you can't, or you came in after I posted it, please let me know. It's essentially just a directory that I post we post every so often, just for you guys to be able to keep in contact with the rest of the community. Put your info out there. I'm very big on finding your team and building a team, and just using this community as a platform to grow your um, just like more exposure, and just kind of tell people what you're working on. I'm posting also, I hope that's the right spreadsheet, but that's for the napkin underwriting tool that we like to use. This is just something Will, Aldo, and myself put together, which helps with underwriting deals, giving you a quick glance at what the deal looks like and what some of the numbers are. One thing I do want to kind of point out on this is, given how many different factors as well can be in a deal, aka seller carry, assumable debt, changing interest rates. Keep in mind that those are all big components to what makes a deal right. We kind of went over this yesterday, and there are so many factors with a deal itself that the napkin doesn't paint the full picture. It just gives you an idea of how far off you may be, or how or are you in the right ballpark for the potential deal. Does anyone have a deal they want to run through or not? If not, I can put one up. Let me do this. No one has a deal? Okay, cool. So I actually used two. I used this one actually a little more.
I actually have a deal, but this is my first time on the Zoom.
Sure.
And I'm not exactly too sure. I've been on other Zooms that you guys have had, but I haven't been on the napkin underwriting Zoom in months. So I mean, I have deals. I just I've been meaning I'm in other multifamily groups, and I'm just trying to stay more. I don't know, trying to connect more with the community. So I saw that you guys posted this. I'm actually off tonight, so for my other job, so I just figured, why not jump on? So,
No, definitely. I appreciate that.
but I mean, I appreciate what you guys are doing. So, I'm just gonna sit back and watch and see how you guys do it all, and kind of just soak it all in, and then would like to maybe connect afterwards or another time.
Sure, not a problem. I'm just kind of here, let me do this. Underwriting, cool. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm just kind of putting things together right now. Okay. So I'm gonna run through this. There's two different tools I use, and I'm gonna kind of do it on both just so you get different ideas. We're actually gonna look at the Florida deal I am currently racing for, because I thought what better deal to underwrite than one I'm oddly familiar with. It would help if I actually shared my screen. Let me do this real quick. Just for my sake, and because I'm kind of trying to manage everything at one time, I am not going to go through the T12 and rent roll, and like where I got these numbers from, but I could obviously, we'll show that and we can discuss that on another day. Given what is and we've done it before too. So if you guys have any questions about that, going over a T12 and a rent roll, we can probably do that next call next week. Please let me know if that's something you guys are interested in. It's just it would take too long to do that right now, and I don't think we get to the meat of what we're looking to do. So one good thing is I'm just going to use the data from my actual underwrite, just because it's all summarized and simplified for me. So if any of it doesn't make sense or is complicated, please just let me know and I can go over anything. I know this deal pretty well at this point. We've underwritten it a couple tens of hundreds of times. So let me know if you have any questions. Okay. And if you want to invest into this deal, please don't hesitate to do that as a shameless plug, as they say. So I'm just gonna go through these numbers and plug them in and kind of show you how. And actually, one thing I do like about this little experiment we're running is it'll show you how much an assumable loan could factor into the equation, because we do have one in this scenario. Dan, I hope this covers a little bit of what you've been wanting to. I know it's you've been asking about this, so I'm gonna plug it into both of these so we'll be able to kind of see how it looks. Cool. All right, so average rent is very self-explanatory, and then you have the total units. The occupancy, this is pretty important because of the loan side and what on the lending side, this is pretty important. It's very important when it comes to CapEx. Here's one thing that you guys will notice when you are looking at rent rolls of properties. You sometimes notice when the seller decided they're gonna start, like the thought of selling came to mind, if that makes sense. Essentially, what I mean by that is if you see rents kind of like fill up very quickly at one point, or you see a lot of rents get renewed at one point, is because you're trying to drive the NOI up and you're trying to drive the total price evaluation of the property up. How do you do that? So what I mean by that is if you take a rent roll, or if you have your rents and they're pretty steady, if I decide, hey, I'm thinking about selling, okay, how do I prepare to get the highest return? Is you drive NOI up. How do I drive NOI up? Less vacancies, more people in units, and more rent, or as much rent as I can. You try to lower your expenses and whatnot. Those are the big ways you're gonna try to drive those numbers in that direction. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's really, really important to look at when you're looking at a rent roll. And when we review rent roll in T12, we'll kind of point that stuff out too. If I forget, please remind me. I hope I don't forget, but you never know. So I'm just kind of going down this in order. So please let me know if there's anything you have a question on. Please feel free to jump in. I'm kind of just running through this. And then let me know if there's anything you guys want to ask. Okay. So I'm just plugging in the numbers that we have offered here. 17,700. I always mess up the number of the zeros. Okay. Assumable loan, yes. And I'll show you guys. Seller carry, yes. CB, point of contact broker, rehab. I would say heavy. What do we have here on the rehab? Repairs 145. What is that average? Rehab costs. Well, it would help. Actually, here, let's just plug this in. Well, actually, this equals this times this. Perfect. Okay. There we go. Expense 45. And here, average rent pro forma, we have it closer to, so average rent pro forma, this is a big one that's very easy to it's gonna mess up your numbers, because you really want to make sure with the average rent pro forma you're not overshooting it, and you're not you have a good accurate comps. Occupancy, I would never put at 100, 94, 95, depending the area. You guys have heard me say this a lot, and some of you might be tired of hearing me say it, but knowing your market and knowing these details and working with a broker who can really identify these numbers are very important. The occupancy, your rent, expense, what's normal in the area, cap rate at purchase definitely helps knowing. And then of course rehab, that's just comes with kind of not a trial and error thing, but it's getting a good idea of what a property needs and what things cost in an area. One thing you'll notice a lot on OMs that again we can go over when we go over the T12s and rent roll is on OM you always have an estimate. I'm not saying they're inaccurate, but take with a grain of salt, you know, like you're always trying to make the numbers look as good as possible on an OM as an agent. So make sure that you have that verified, or you add a little bit of cushion to it, because they almost never turn out what you expect. And also, even when you receive a quote, and especially when you do due diligence and walk a property, like we thought this was going to be closer to 1.5, we're closer to 2, you know, just a reality of it. When you walk the property, you see things such as trees hanging over buildings. You see roots possibly affecting structure and infrastructure, which are things you have to be careful of. And just other landscaping things, and units might not look as pretty as you thought. It might not be as updated as you thought. These are all natural, normal things you're going to see throughout the due diligence period. So it's important to keep that stuff in mind. You also never know what you're going to find on the sewer line, for example. The owner who's selling the property might not have a clue what's down there because they haven't checked. If they've owned it for 10, 20, 30 years, you have no idea. These are all factors to keep in mind when you're just glancing over into underwriting. Exit cap rate, this is a little high. Just given the area and knowing what we're getting this at, our exit, we'll just put the cap rate at 6. Here's one thing that this napkin really helps with, and I'm actually going to highlight this, and I hope I don't mess anything up. These are opportunities of upside. Now, on this, we have the expense ratio a little higher than we would. So let's say I change that. We go to 40. Another thing with the expense ratio that's important to keep in mind, your expense ratio is it's a very situational thing where, for anyone that remembers yesterday's call or that was on it, just to give you a quick summary, someone got on the call and they mentioned that the property's expense ratio was like 70, 80%, like a crazy high number. And right away, my initial thought was, is the expense ratio high because the expense number is high, or is the expense ratio high because the income number is low? Both things can be true, but those are the two things that control. Remember, it's an expense ratio, it's a percentage, right? If I tell you guys where you're one of 15 people in this call compared to 1 in 150 in this call, two very different percentages, correct? Same concept. So it's really important to keep in mind that you want to know why an expense ratio is high or low. It could be the other way too. Like they ran an abnormally high income for whatever reason, or some of their expenses weren't factored in, like tax and insurance. You know, sometimes you see like a T3 or T6. Okay, what if insurance was paid right before the T6? A trailing 6 months. Insurance, what if for the year was paid at month 8? You're completely missing one of your biggest expenses. I hope I didn't confuse anyone with that. Please let me know if you have questions. But there's a lot of ways to manipulate these numbers. Is kind of my point. That's important to look out for. So the biggest thing about the napkin that I look at is what's the upside look like. This is important for 2 reasons. If you don't have strong upside just on your value add, it's very hard for me to turn to an investor like, trust me with your money, and I'm going to bring you more than you gave me. That's big, especially in today's, I hate saying today's market. I think it's very broad, but in today's outlook and just the mentality of just in general, investors are looking for 2x equity multiplier most of the time, not counting any cost segregation. Not to confuse anyone or go down that rabbit hole, but that's essentially just depreciation. What that means is I invest, for example, on this deal. You invest 100,000, right? Year 1, you can cost seg, which is depreciate 26%. Meaning, usually, well, especially with accredited investors, you usually are going to have a high tax bill. So as an investor, you investing 100,000 and then being able to write off 26 is worth it, right? 26% write-off. Where that's also valuable is because we're hoping, and the goal obviously is not hoping, our projections are you are going to get 2 times that on the return. So not only are you getting 26 today, year 1, mind you, that's not a 1-year thing, but it continues, and I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole because it gets very confusing. But you're getting 26% of that back year 1 off of your taxes. Obviously, you have to make enough where that's relevant. If you're not making something where 26,000 write-off doesn't help you, it's a different conversation. But that's just something that you have to keep in mind when talking to investors and presenting this. But you're also projecting, hey, we're gonna give you double in 5 years, secured by real estate. You know, we don't advertise the cost seg into the investment package right off the bat. The 2x multipliers in addition to that. So this is just a quick little look at the napkin. I'm gonna post it again. For anyone confused on why you can't edit this, it's only a view of the doc. So just make a copy. I know I highlighted this, just clear that highlight and everything should be okay. I may have also edited this, which might have been a mistake, but I can fix that. Occupancy is important, like I said. Anyone who has, and let me go over this real quick. If you have a rent roll or you have your market rents on the pro forma side and you're not sure how, or you don't want to deal with the averages, or it's not an Excel sheet, whatever the case is, we give you all the different options here. Obviously, feel free to edit these to whichever unit mix your property you're looking to underwrite is. One thing I do that I advise everyone to do, because early on I made this ridiculous mistake of using a calculator and not copying the calculator I was using for every property. And I ended up having to rewrite almost every deal because of new information, because I'm not the brightest person. What I do is I just go file, make a copy, and I'll name the document the property I am underwriting. Number of units, location, whatever the case is. My Google Drive hates me. I have like thousands of deals in there. It sucks. It sucks more when you don't remember what you titled it. So I would keep it uniform. Also, if someone sent me a deal through email, whatever, I would have the title of the document, the subject line. So if I can't find the email, it never existed, in my opinion. Just some tips that I wish I knew early on. Debt overview. This is a very interesting part of it. Let's see how this actually works if I plug in the assumable loan, because this is an experiment that I actually not sure how it's going to turn out. So let's say we put the interest rate at 3.64. Yes, that is our actual assumable loan, and I'm very proud of it. The LTV is far from 70%, unfortunately. I would have loved to have a 70%, but in this case, it is 44%. Am I sharing? Yeah, okay. That would have really sucked if I wasn't sharing my screen, because I've been like, what the hell is this madman talking about? LTV is 56, correct? Right? 56? Yeah, let's go 56. Close enough. Amortization is 30. Payment looks right. DSCR, return. Okay, cool. Now, a lot going on here, right? The objective is just to make sure that you are able to see the upside and you're able to see what you're looking at on the big picture. Let me make sure this debt is right. I think the debt doesn't factor the interest. Okay, that's cool. So looking at it from this perspective, any questions or anything like you guys just want me to like go over if you missed something? I know a few people hopped in a little late. Any questions on the overall use of this? Obviously, I didn't fill this part out, so don't worry about that too much. And I'm just looking here right now. No. Sorry, who's talking? I missed that. Okay. Cool. So let me go through this one. One thing I'm always like a big proponent of is don't rely on one, but I like to use different underwriting tools to that's a good question. I'll send you guys I'll post a link to the YouTube for the recordings. Everything is put on YouTube. Every video we've ever recorded is on YouTube with the MFC group, such as your Monday through Wednesday videos and your Sunday activation Zooms, which we've had some pretty awesome guests. So I recommend going back to watching those. So this is a calculator I've also used. Do I have additional income in this? That's something else to. So we have the market cap rate. Let's put this at 5.5. 6. CapEx budget per unit, we're gonna put at 12. Expense, we're gonna put at 40, not 410, 40. Current occupancy, we're just gonna put at 95. Current additional income is per unit. So knowing the number off the top of my head, I'm just gonna divide it. And then additional income going forward, we're hoping this goes up to, is it 1,000? Did I do my math right? Whoa. No, that's way too high. So this equals 140 divided by 120. Okay. So I have this fun thing I love doing. Oh, that's where I messed up.
Quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, the additional income, where did 140 come from? I might have missed it. Okay, and then you're dividing by,
So that okay,
And I'm-
I'm happy you asked that because I might have confused some people. That's just me knowing what we're projecting for the additional. So I think you came a little after I gave the initial spiel about this one. I know this deal very well because this is a deal I'm actually in escrow for. So 140 is what we're projecting the income to be in like after year 1.5. So I know that number. I just couldn't remember what the per unit was, and I didn't want to go looking for it. So I'm just like, let me do it the easy way. So sorry if that confused anyone, but
okay,
one way to project it, actually, that's a good point. Let's look at that real quick. One way to look at the additional income and to make sure you're not overly optimistic or overshooting it goes back to what can I do with the utilities? That's going to be kind of like the first place a lot of people look in regards to build backs. Can I submeter it and have the tenants pay for it? One way or another, it's how can I recoup some of that big cost? Here's one thing, and I've said this a lot, and I'm going to always say it because it's something that I don't think, I do think it's easy to overlook if you don't know what you're looking for. If you ever see a T12, make sure you always find the utilities line, especially if there's additional income stating that the utilities are billed back. Okay. You don't want to see a T12 with utilities not in there and they're getting like additional income in utilities. Like, I don't know how that works. It's like you just like doubled it, you know? Also, you want to make sure that if there is no additional income on the utility side at all, or it's not in your expenses, you kind of clarify why. Like, is that because it's submetered? Is that because it's just passed directly to the tenant? It's always a good question to get clarification on that because that allows you to understand what upside you have with the utilities. It just gives you more ammunition. Like, hey, I have XYZ question. I can strategize appropriately because not only should you know this, investors are going to ask, accredited investors are 1000% going to ask, lenders are going to ask, your bank's going to ask, even on assumable loans. When you go to assume the loan, they're going to ask. One way or another, it's you really need to have a grasp on what the strategy is and cover all your bases. And you'd be surprised how many questions a lender, investor, GP, like just anyone can ask you at any time about a deal. And it's kind of like, hey, be prepared to answer. Or just have an idea of like, okay, what is this gonna look like? You know? Have you guys ever been on those videos or those like Zooms people do, or you've seen like GPs like post a Zoom or a link that goes over the deal and everyone has like a little part to discuss and they go into the numbers and whatnot. These are all for investors. It's a way to kind of put the deal out there and just attract investors. They'll take a lot of time. Also, it takes a lot of homework. So you put yourself in that shoe, like in that seat. I want to make sure I know this deal. I can talk about it. I can pitch it, and you want to make sure that you kind of have your numbers conservative. I think that's a big part about it. Like on this deal where I'm saying 2x multiple, I'm pretty confident we can get to 2.4 to 2.5, which is crazy, but that's being aggressive. On this sheet, so the question was, do we exclude additional income? On this sheet, we don't have it. That is a great point. The thing with additional income is where's additional income coming from? That's one. So these are both my napkin, essentially. It's just different calculators. The thing with the additional income is very situational. Is you want to know where that additional income is coming from. If it's late fees, well, I'm hoping I don't have to. It's like a double-edged sword. I want the additional income, but I don't want to deal with the late fees. You know, it's like one of those. I can do without, but I don't hate having some. Or it's like forfeited deposit. That's not great either. So this napkin doesn't have the additional income. It's probably something we should add. I'll talk to Aldo about that. I'm pretty sure we could play around with this. If anyone, also don't be afraid to play around with this, like make a copy and have a field day. That's what I did with this calculator. I originally got this calculator from somewhere else. And then I just added my own touch to it. The return multiple. So that's something, it's a good question. So the question is, where do you calculate the return multiple? That's something that's definitely going to involve more than a napkin. Like this is not something that you figure that out with just a brief overlook. For example, I don't even see the multiple on here. I do see some information that is helpful, but like, for example, this is the Michael Blank one, which a lot of us have used. Yeah, I'll go over that right now, Rakesh. But when you go to the summary on the Michael Blank, you have a very good explanation of your returns here, what the splits are, your cash on cash average, your debt coverage ratio, your multiplier. And then if you go to, how do I move this? If you go to returns, you will see more of the information here. Return percentage, and again, these are very conservative numbers. So we still, and this is before we did another underwrite. So this isn't the full underwrite of the deal. It's just far enough where you guys kind of get the point with this. So that's kind of how the whole return multiple works. If you're familiar, so let me ask you this: is it Mary Jane or is it just Mary?
It's Mary Jane.
Okay, perfect. So do you have like a more like when you're running through the deal, like post napkin, I guess more of like, do you use the SDA? What calculator do you?
I use the Michael Blank.
Okay, so same one, perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's essentially where you would look is the total return on investment. Remember, this is 79% on top of the money back. So
Okay.
in order for it to be a 2x multiple, you'd want this to hit 100, right? Just what return are you getting based on that? And remember, this also doesn't account for the cost seg. That's important to keep in fact account too.
Okay.
One thing as well on this calculator, not to get too far into it and get off topic, it's very important to understand how your numbers shift year to year. Okay, I'm not going to dive too far into this, but this is something that can really throw off your summary if you don't properly adjust these numbers without messing with these too much. But we can dabble into that a little later. Going to the question real quick of the napkin and exit napkin. The exit napkin is essentially like, what's my pro forma? What am I hoping to get these numbers up to? Or what do I project that we can get this up to? The expense ratio is always the trickiest simply because, like I said, it is so situational. Like, is your tax going to go up? Most likely. Depending what state you're in, is your insurance going to go up? Probably. Is your utilities going to go down? No, but you're just going to get more additional income to make that up, right? Is my management and repairs and maintenance going to change? That's an interesting point. So here's one to look at. On a T12, we see a high repairs and maintenance. That just means the building's old, like, or tenants are reckless. Hopefully it's the first one because I can tolerate that. The second one you have no control over. Once you update the units, which on any value add you're doing, you are probably going to be doing, right? It's the first thing is get tenants out and upgrade the units, get tenants in for higher rent. You should have less repairs and maintenance. If not, you have an issue with your contractor. So right off the bat, that is something that you should look at, like, okay, I can cut costs here. And you're not doing it in a, like, I'm not trying to be super aggressive by saying, I'm hoping it's non-existent. Is that the case? No, never, obviously. But it's going to be a lot less than it is today. If you're running at like 150,000 repairs and maintenance, I'm hoping to get that to like 20, maybe like 15, honestly. Because everything's brand new. What the heck can possibly break, right? If it breaks, that's just annoying. like find a new contractor or a new tenant. So one way or another, something's going on. So that's where you're going to see the biggest shifts in expenses. Tax, insurance, Repairs, maintenance, hopefully for the better. Sometimes utilities, depending if you submeter or whatever the case is, but keep that in mind. One thing to keep in mind too is common area utilities. I think a lot of people miss that too sometimes. Like you're always gonna have some utilities. Gym, for example, on those really big fancy like higher class buildings. Maybe like a dog park. I don't know what the utilities they would require, but maintenance, like you're still responsible for it, right? Pool obviously has the biggest headache of utilities possible, and that's all under your roof. Like you're not able to reallocate that. You can maybe try to charge tenants for it, like a usage fee. That just depends your market at that point. If you can't, sweet, I wouldn't bank on it. That's more of like a cherry on top. One thing you notice too as you underwrite more deals is how many of those small details you just don't include, and if you get it, you're happy. I'm not gonna be here like parking fee, storage fee, oh, random room that I can rent out for $50 a month. I'm never gonna count that stuff. I get it, sweet. My numbers work without it, even better. I'm happy, but I'm not gonna rely on those small wins because those are just cherries on top that you can just kind of cover any more of a just in case fund, you know. And if you ever miss a number here or there in any direction, hopefully that helps. It's just like adding another buffer essentially. I was gonna mention reserves. Here's a good one. And this also doesn't show. Oh, before I get ahead of myself again, let me finish this real quick. Regarding any calculator you use, especially if you guys end up using this one, make sure you are familiar with how to play with the interest rate and the assumable debt. So I know the loan amount, let me just copy it from here, is, oh, I'm looking at, yeah, I'm looking at the wrong screen. Scenarios, it's 9925. Okay. Loan amount equals this divided by this. And then this is the difference. Here's another thing to keep in mind. Your equity raise, for example, here, is factoring your rehab and your down payment. On the Michael Blank, your summary, which your member needed capital to close, includes everything. Closing costs, acquisitions fees, repairs, any other out-of-pocket costs, inspections, which adds up, lawyer fees, those add up. All these different fees add up, right? Heck, travel budget should probably have that in there too, right? You're visiting the property multiple times. I don't live anywhere near any of the properties I ever underwrite. I'm in California. I'm not investing here. It's just the reality of it, right? I love living here, never moving, never investing here again. I'm over it. So I'm flying east always, no matter what. It's just gonna happen, right? And depending how much of a heads up you have, your flights get expensive. Speaking from experience. So that's where napkin is really not going to paint the full picture. It's just kind of like, okay, where am I at with this and how can I move? The additional income is there, expense, you can even put a little bit of a buffer there. And then there you go. Now, seller carry. This is a fun part. So in this deal, I know, and mind you, I'm making all these edits because I'm familiar with this. And I can mess with the formulas because I can basically rewrite this if I needed to. Please don't ask me to, I'm not. 1.8. And I should have probably, see, I made the mistake of not making a copy of this before I started this. So now after this call, I get to go back and fix all the formulas. But it's fine, you're welcome. I love you guys. Let's go to seller carryback now. This equals this divided by this. Okay. So now I know I need 10% less on the capital side. All right, so for anyone that I lost there, when you working with Excel, this is why you guys have heard me say often, sometimes knowing Excel helps you underwrite a deal more than knowing the actual real estate side of things, because you know how the numbers move. If I know my seller carry is locked in at 1.8, hopefully I don't press the wrong button, and I know my loan amount is locked in at 9925, I'm gonna overwrite that formula to make sure it doesn't adjust. Because the loan amount's not changing. My offer price is changing. My loan amount's not. So what I do is I take my percentage here. It equals this. Actually, let me do this. So you could see right here. Loan amount divided by purchase price. Guess what happens when I change this purchase price? This percentage changes. So if I change this to 10, that's 99%. If I change this to 25, it's 40%. If I change it back, 17.7. See, I don't have to guess my percentages now. It just makes it so much easier. Like, Excel does everything for me. I'm lazy, guys. I'm not about to come here and figure out how much of what percentage is what, and I have to worry about how much percentage of the loan is it at this price and like work backwards. I'm not going to do that. It's just not happening. And then I do the same formula for the seller carry, and we end up at 100%. Now, I don't believe I'm missing anything else here. Market vacancy, cap rate. If you want to get crazy with this, it's not that crazy, but it's something. You add a little bit of a buffer to the stabilized cap rate to lower the price. But that's not a big deal. That's just kind of me talking about nonsense. So don't worry about that too much. Oh, thank you for answering the question about the calculator, the Michael Blank one. Sorry, I missed that. So this is just a quick run through of this one. I personally like using this because it's the one I started with. I think that's really important when you, oh shoot, nope, don't do that. What did I do? All right, we're back. I'm really big on using a calculator you're very familiar with. I've used this a lot. I've played with this a lot. I've added to it. Before this line didn't exist, this was something different. These were combined, which obviously is a problem. And I've played with this at one point to add this, and then I didn't need it anymore, so I stopped. Like I said, lazy, whatever. So just looking at it from this perspective, I'm like, okay, this is a pretty solid deal, right? Like, let's say even if this is a little lower and it's like 1875. Okay, I'm still not mad at this, right? But remember, it's really important to know what you're paying your investors. That's a big component of it. One thing, the Michael Blank one, if I can find it, I don't know what the heck. Okay, here we are. One thing this does very well is it differentiates what your investors are getting compared to the member GP, right? And one thing it also does that I like a lot is it factors in the interest only months if you have a long IO period, because that can definitely change the landscape of a deal. Obviously, one thing I do, if it's less than, I guess maybe like 8 to 10 months, I just write the assumable loan as, even if there's, the interest only period, I just factor as principal and interest. Why? It just means I have a little bit more wiggle room during that time. And it kind of factors in for the vacancy I'm probably going to have, because that's going to be my heaviest rehab period. And maybe it's not year one, but like towards year two is when you're really going to get the high vacancy and you're going to get a lot of your tenants out. And then you can really push for the full rehab. But you're kind of budgeting in like, hey, if I don't have the principal for the first 7 months or 8 months in my underwrite, but I actually have it, even better. Right? So that's just something I like to do. Obviously, if it's more like whatever, more than a year, then I guess I'll plug it in and let that run with it. So yeah, I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Any questions?
A quick question.
Go for it.
I think the down payment is what, 44%? Yeah, I think it's 44%, and then the loan is about 56.
Correct.
Now you have a strong DSR at 2.81. Meaning you could do less down payment and still meet. What is forcing a higher down payment in this case?
I'm happy you asked that.
Okay.
So remember here I said, what's one thing that is never going to change in this equation if I assume the loan is the loan amount? Remember, there's still an interest-only period. I'm just not factoring it into my numbers. If there's still an interest-only, no matter how many months pass by, I know this principal is not being reduced. So whether I close today or I close in 3 months, I know they're still in the IO period. So the principal of the loan is never going down. Now, there's another alternative, which, not to add fuel to the fire, it makes it a little complicated, but one interesting option is going back to the lender and saying, do I have room for a supplemental? What that means is, what's the biggest fear any lender has when you ask them to be in second position? Is not getting their money and being defaulted because the first position holds the bag. They hold the keys to the car, right? So if I'm sitting in the back seat as a second position, I don't know what the heck the driver is going to do. Okay, but now picture this. If I'm the driver, right, you're in first position, but I also own the second position, I basically just increase my average interest rate on that investment. And what that means is now both of, like, I'm in full control. I'm in the front 2 seats, right? I know what the first person is going to do because I'm the first person. Like, I don't care if I'm in second position. It's just your average is you own the whole debt on that property, for example, if that makes sense, right? Supplemental is a little tricky because then it asks for a higher sponsor, obviously, because you're getting more debt. You have to see if the property qualifies for the supplemental. So they can tell you it's available, right? Hey, I can give you up to, let's just call it 12 million. And then they look at the numbers because they don't know what the heck's been happening at the property since the last time they even checked in. If they did, I don't know. Every property is its own scenario, right? It's on case by case. And then they look at the numbers, they're like, yeah, no. Like, too bad. You're not getting 12 million. You know, you have your 925, we'll give you like another million, if that, if it's even worth for them to do all that. Because remember, you're now paying for that cost. No one's ever doing the work for a loan for free. So you're adding to your cost. Is the amount of the loan you're going to get worth the cost of it? Sometimes it's just better to say, screw it, I'm going to raise the capital myself. You know, again, it depends. And to your point of the DSCR, your DSCR, when it is such a high down payment and such a low LTV, what does DSCR stand for? Debt coverage ratio. How much does my income outweigh my debt? Obviously, I really hope if you're investing in a deal and the DSCR is that strong, or you're putting that much down payment, your DSCR has to be strong. Because the 1.2 is compared at like 65, 70% LTV. I'm not even close to that. Like, I'm 15% away from that, right? So that's why the DSCR looks so amazing. In reality, it's just because we put a lot down. Like, it doesn't justify it. Like, a good deal shouldn't be justified, or a DSCR shouldn't be justified by just putting more down. Now, obviously, if you tell me, hey, it's today's interest rate and this is at 7.5, that looks great, but wait till I increase this and it doesn't look great. Like, what happens if I change my, am I going to mess this up too much if I overwrite this? I might, so I'm not going to do it. Here's what I will do though. Let's go here. And right here. So let's say I change this to 7.5, right? So right now, your monthly mortgage is 45,000. If I change it to 7.5, you're at 70,000. Off the bat, I lost 35 grand. Now, let's say I increase the loan amount, just because I don't want to make this more complicated, to 11 million, right? And I lower this to 28. So I'm raising less down payment, right? My numbers suck because my debt's too high. You see the problem with that? Like there has to be assumable debt is attractive for the low interest rates, and this is what a lot of people are saying in regards to the whole multifamily reckoning that's coming. It sounds like it's just like the world's gonna freeze. A lot of people who got properties in between 2020 and 2022 during COVID when rates were disgustingly low, and we're never going to see that again. If you're a bridge loan and you're calculating, look, at that time, I'm sorry, I don't care who you were, you never thought rates would be where they are at this moment, this quickly, right? You may have thought, yeah, okay, realistically, everyone thought it'd be higher. It was unrealistic to think that wave was going to carry, but no one thought it'd be triple, which is what we're kind of dealing with at this point. Especially if you're in the twos, high twos, you're basically triple now, right? If you underwrote for that, kudos. If you got a good enough deal and you dodged a bullet, or you got a long enough bridge loan where you kind of avoided this mess, you got lucky. If not, you're worried because you don't know how you're going to refinance, even if your pro forma is what it is. Like let's say you far exceeded your pro forma, your debt has increased so much in cost. I don't know how you're gonna make up that value add. That forced appreciation, you've almost lost all of it. Now you have to turn to investors like, I'm happy to get you your money back at this point without losing the property. And there are a lot of people that are eventually going to lose their property because you're over leveraged and you just can't pay that money out. Like, I don't know how else, like, that's just is the reality of it. How do you get around that? How do you get out of that? I don't know. But a lot of people do know. And the people who do know and are prepared are definitely going to be swimming. The rich are going to get richer, let's say. Because one common thing that you're hearing a lot of people say is, oh, all these multifamily deals are going to hit the market and it's going to be a sale, a clearance sale. Yeah, for the person who's been doing this for 10 years, that sounds great. I'm prepared. My investors are ready. They know what's coming. I've prepared them for a year or 6 months, however long you want to say. And they know that once we get the ball rolling, heck, you might even have a fund ready, which, let's be fair, if you have the fund ready, you're going to beat everyone else. You're going to beat them to the punch by miles. Largely because, depending how the size of your fund is, you can close faster than anyone. You know you can close because you also have the money ready. You're not scrambling with a capital raise. And you have it in one place. There's no, we might get it, we might not. It makes everything easier. The bank's going to trust you more. The seller's going to trust you. Any agents involved are likely to trust you. Have a good night, Antonio. Thanks for hopping on. My phone number's in here, right? Yeah, cool. So yeah, that's a large part of. Sorry, I just stopped sharing my screen, but any other that's just kind of is a big part of it. Like, interest rate is such a big component in all this, especially when it's a numbers game at the end of it. So be careful with that when you are looking at deals, and don't justify an assumable loan because you have to put a lot down. Like, this one's very low risk for the assumable loan. We have it for 9 years. Like, we really can't screw that up. In 9 years, at this point, we can do nothing that's going to be worth more. Even if we go down through a down market, it'll eventually be on the upswing and we'll be fine. Yeah, you had a question. Oh, hey, how are you? Go for it, Barbara. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, it was running a little late tonight. So, I just threw a property I was looking at today into your napkin underwriting. And I've not used this before, so maybe I did something wrong. So it's a 73 unit property that they're asking like 6.7 million for. So it shows me when I go to your returns side and columns M and N that the first year it's a negative cash flow. But cash on cash stabilized then becomes positive 10.5 Did I do something wrong?
Like year one is gonna be very year one is just depending on what that the cash on cash is usually the average over however long the deal you're holding for. And because it's gonna factor in to your pro forma rate as well, your rent. The cash on cash usually year one, depending on how you structure it, year one, you're gonna not be the hottest. If you notice any, I'm trying to find it, but I don't think I'll be able to find it quickly. If you look at any form of marketing or like investment overview of a deal, the cash on cash is the average. Like like I was saying earlier, year one to maybe two, hopefully sooner, but year 1 to 2, maybe a year and a half. If you're value adding majority of units, you're just not going to be cash flowing like you would like. Just the bottom line, because you're getting units out or your rents are low and you're waiting for them to expire. Like, for example, in this deal, we told once our due diligence period ended, we told the seller, don't renew any leases. Like renewing leases at your prices are just hurting us because that's 1 year we have to ride that lease out and it's below market value because no one's going in to renovate it. So we want them to put a stop on renewing leases so that we can go in, and if it's month to month, great, we can jump in right away and rehab the unit, or we have better control of the timeline. You know, like, hey, I have 20 units I'm working on right now. This person will kind of like time it where we can hopefully even get them directly into one of the ready units and increase their rent right away, and they don't have to move far. Like we found a tenant pre-approved. We know they're good tenants. They've been at that building. They know where they're more familiar than we have at that point. They've been there longer, right? So that's where the first year is always messy with that. That's why I don't really focus on the first year too much. Year one is very messy. Anytime you look at that's why even the Michael Blank one, sometimes it's really important to kind of differentiate how year one looks compared to the rest of it. And it's really important that from year 1 to 2 to 3, especially those first 3 years, you make the appropriate rate adjustments so that it shows that growth in rent that you are hoping to. You're gonna have the biggest jump year 1 to 2, or year 1 to 3 most likely, like 2 to 3. But that first 3 years is where you should see that big jump. We're hoping to increase our rent almost 5, 6, 7, like 5 to 700 between the first 3 years, 2 years. Just because like that's the opportunity, that's why we're buying it. Like, isn't that why we're all buying these units? Like, there's just a lot of opportunity there. Sweet, let's run with it. I hope that helped.
Yeah. No, this was just different. I try so many tools, so it's interesting to see how they lay out differently. But okay, great, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Go for it.
One question I have is I came across a deal. Sorry, by the way, I was driving, so that's what I didn't turn on the camera. So so this is a 68 unit per all together, but 8 unit is they already sold individuals. So the 58 unit is what selling. It comes up with an HOA. So is that something I need to worry because it has an HOA which is like almost 10% of the revenues has to go with HOA. So altogether the expense comes like a 67%, but NOI is calculated based on that. So my only concern is like is HOA is in the picture, is there anything as an investor I have to worry?
So you're not owning anything on the building side. You just own the units individually. So it's as if you went and bought, what was it, 58 you said, 60?
58 unit comes with that.
So it's as if you bought 58 individual condos. Like you don't really own the building because you have no control. Sure, HOA, you're the majority in that. So yeah, you carry a lot of the weight, obviously. You control the rent in that sense. But at the end of the day, you don't own every unit. So at that point, I personally have had deals where I've looked at it and it wasn't the full ownership. Like I owned, like it would have been a majority of a complex. So you do have to factor into HOA. I'm not a big fan unless it's a really good deal, just because you don't have like you kind of have control, but you really don't at the same time. Like it's a little frustrating. You don't really own everything. Any additional like exterior renovation you want to do, you're paying for it to really benefit the other 8 units. If someone complains, you have no control over it because they own it, especially because they may live there, like owner occupied. I'm kind of, I don't know, it's very situational for me. So I would be a little hesitant with that. You'd have to make sure it's a good deal. And it sucks that you are paying a big HOA fee because you're paying it per unit. And there's
Correct.
nothing you can do unless you own all the units and you're control the HOA, so who cares? You dissolve it or whatever. But watch here, here's an interesting thing. With the 120 unit, one of the exit strategies that are an option is correct. That's a good point, Barbara. Also, you could get lawsuits or any legal stuff. It gets very messy, and loans become an issue sometimes with HOA. But for example, this 120 unit, we've even considered doing a condo conversion because a lot of different properties in the area that were apartments did a condo conversion, especially during COVID, for 2 reasons. One, you can sell them off individually. So let's say we're buying it at 147 a unit. If the average rate of condos in the area for the same size is 200, or sorry, it was like 250 or 300, something close to that. I can just do the condo conversion, factor the cost into each unit, divide it evenly across it all. Maybe my price goes up to, let's say, 160 a unit, 165. If I could flip it for 250, what the heck do I care? The HOA is not my problem. I'm selling every unit. If there's any I want, I just rent it out. Like if I can't sell it, it's not a big deal. So a lot of play, like it is an exit strategy, but to have it as an HOA and try to go backwards, I think it's a little messy. Oh, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. A few people in the chat. I'm not just saying bye to everyone. Good seeing you guys. But yeah, that's the biggest part about it. It does get a little. It's tricky. That's definitely one where, depending where is that located?
In Texas.
Okay. I definitely ask a broker too, like, is there anything I should know? Because every state is going to be different. City might be different. So if you got a deal from a broker, I would ask them. If you didn't get it from a broker, maybe ask a property management company. That's not a bad idea because you're just going to gather more information on it. I do know you can do it, and I wouldn't say don't do it. It just make sure you do your homework beforehand. Barbara made a great point. Like there's so many things behind the scenes with an HOA that you don't want to buy someone else's problem. Yeah, it can just go down a bad rabbit hole. But those are some things to just be aware of. Ideally, I'd love to go the other direction, or like buy an apartment building, convert it, and just sell the units individually. Whatever you can't sell, you keep it rent out. Who cares? If you get it at a good enough price per door and you can convert it easily, that's a strategy that I'm pretty sure a lot of people do.
I mean, yeah, I mean, if it was a easy thing, they would have do it already, right? Because they already sold 6. I mean, 8 they already sold. If that was an easy sell, then they would have sell it.
See, that is interesting. They sold the 8, like one person owned all of them. They just sold 8 to one person or individually.
No, I think he sold it like individual person. 8.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess maybe the time it took to sell them individually was longer than they hoped. Maybe their interest wasn't there. I don't know. There's so many factors with that. I hate saying that, like, but it is a case. Like, there's so many things involved with that. How much is it? Is it a high cost?
It's $150 per unit.
Okay, yeah, you multiply that overall, that because you're not getting
it's yearly about 100K. Out of the 400K total revenue, it's about 100K. It's about, it's a good amount of money. It's more than 20 to 23%.
You want to really know how much it really affects you is take that number, multiply or factor, like find out the cap rate, do the math, and see how much property value you're losing because of those 8 units. Not owning the 8 units costs you more than you were to pay a lot of money for them, overpay
Yeah.
for them, I should say.
It's 2.5. That's what they're listing now. And it's on a 8 cap. Yeah.
Okay, so do an 8 cap by the 100,000, you have an idea of what the overall value is.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. It's like the HOA, it's like that's such an unnecessary fee when you have that much control. It's annoying.
Mhm.
Even if you can put it to work for you, it's like, do we really have to do this?
Yeah. It's another layer. Yeah.
Another thing to be aware of is how is the building, and are those units attached to any units that you would take over? Because now you have an issue of, hey, that's not my tenant. I have no say in it. Yeah, you don't want to be involved anyway, but it's like you can't even manage their tenant. Like, how are you gonna have a property management company that can only manage 90% of the units, but that other 10%, they're like, you have no authority over. There you go. Thank you for the math, Barbara. You're the best.
Yeah.
1.25. Like, that's a lot. Like, that sucks. Like, to just like, hey, I don't like, at that point I just pay millions for the other 8 units, and it's less of a headache, to be fair.
Yeah.
Is it worth that much? I have no idea. I don't know what the price per unit is, but it seems like that's very low for 50 units for 2.5 seems low, no?
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, NOA is for. So I mean, when you look at NOA, right, that comes around 190 or 200, I think. Yeah, about 200, because more
You lost
than
50% of that to the HOA.
correct, because your total expense comes around 67%.
Well, doing your cap rate, doing the math, your cap rate's right. Barbara, you answered so many questions with that one message. It's amazing. It's like that's it. It just opened everything up. I'm like, okay, this is easy now. So it's like, oh, that was simple math. That was awesome.
Math solves it all. It makes it clear.
Yeah, ironically, on the underwriting sim, you would think so, huh? It's all numbers game. Remember that. That's what I like. There's no emotion involved behind all this. Any other questions before I stop the recording? And then there's one more thing I want to do for you guys. The heck is this? Okay. Sorry. I need to find what I was doing. Wait, where does Zoom go? Oh, sorry. I lost you guys for a sec. I have too many tabs open, as you guys can imagine. I'm really bad at that. I have 2 of these? No, that's okay. Oh, no. Okay, there we go. Let me make sure I do any questions before we head out. Oh, whoops. So loan amount equals this times this. And then this equals, I know you guys can't see what I'm doing. I haven't lost my mind completely. Give me 1 sec. If there's no questions, actually, that'll make this a lot easier. Let me just do this.